Alrighty. Nier Automata, or Automata, whatever, has finally been conquered. And, meh? I think meh is definitely just the best that I could possibly give it. Um, I, I think, I think there's another, like playthrough that you can do, but something that I guess I'll get to later. But um, yeah, I guess my overall thoughts is I don't really see what makes the game so special at the moment. I have now done 2B and I have done 9S, and I think this game is extremely unremarkable. It it has an interesting combat system. I think changing things up with the hacking brings a different dynamic to the game, but I think the story is very weak. I think the combat does get stale pretty quickly. I just don't see it. I have this sinking suspicion that you have to do the side quests to really get the story that you want, maybe, or something like that, or maybe unlock the ending that you want to get. I don't know, but I I don't really want to say that I'm disappointed because I came into this game with very low expectations, and I came into this game pretty much expecting to get something mediocre or maybe even worse. But I can't necessarily ignore that so many people regard this game as being uh, exceptional and having these really cool elements and really cool storytelling devices. And I really didn't experience any of that. Um, and so I guess there's a little bit of jealousy on my part that they found this game to be, uh, quite fantastic. Where I just don't, I don't see it the same way. I didn't get their experience, I suppose. But stuff and stuff with the stuff and stuff. I have a fundamental issue with the structure of the game because it bars valuable, air quotes, moments of the game behind mediocrity. I don't feel there is anything compelling about 2B's story to make me feel interested in seeing what comes next. It then gets worse because what comes next is 9S, which is the same game as 2B with, I'm going to say, small differences. Um, yeah, there's there's not enough of a change in either of the playthroughs to, in my opinion, to warrant playing playing the game again. It's so minuscule, it's so insignificant, it's so superfluous that it honestly just kind of felt like a waste of time. And it kind of made me a little disappointed because there's something else that I'll talk about, or at least mention later. But I I had a feeling that it would play out this way. But when I was playing 9S and we did the tutorial with 2B as 9S, I started to see the type of potential that could be brought in with this game. And that kind of got me a little excited of like, wow, this was actually an amazingly cool moment. I wonder how they're going to either do something similar, or I wonder how they're going to do other cool things with this particular playthrough. But it didn't really end up that way. I mean, sure, the hacking thing is interesting, but just wasn't it wasn't enough of a game changer. And as I've mentioned before, it's just it kind of gets in the way. Having to repeatedly hack an enemy over and over and go through the transitions and out of the transitions. It didn't make the experience change in a way that felt conducive is the word that comes to mind, but I'm pretty sure that's the wrong usage of that. I just wasn't jiving with it, I suppose. For story, was it satisfying? It was not. um, in a lot of ways, I guess we got a story that goes full circle, but I didn't find myself being surprised or excited about the things that were happening in the story. It was more or less we just drop down and fight some robots. I think there's a lot of things left on the table for Adam and Eve, and even like Yorha as a whole, and not necessarily the machines. We got a little bit about the machines, I suppose, but it just didn't feel like I got something out of the story. It didn't feel like a story where it's like, oh man, I would love to steal this for a Dungeons and Dragons campaign or something like that. Like I just didn't get anything out of that. Did it feel complete? I'm gonna say no, but I might be just a little jaded when it comes to this, because after you beat 2B, they say this in like this text screen. We highly recommend you play through the game again, referencing 9S's route, to witness the full Nier Automata experience. And after completing 9S's route, I don't feel like I got a complete experience out of this game. The 9S route adds the smallest of morsels to what I was thinking would be an overall and grand exploration of a plot where there's androids fighting machines that were created by aliens, and then there's these humans and all this other stuff. It just didn't come together all that well, which kind of gets into the pacing of this game. And I think it really sucks to play a game and get just like, I want to say 5 to 10% of the story, and then you get prompted with a message saying, hey, you'll get the other 90% of the story or 95% of the story by continuing. So I continued, and I feel like I got 2%, 2 to 4% of the story. It felt like a debate to me, and to me it never feels good to play a game once and then have to play the game again and have it be functionally identical. I was engaging in the exact same main story quests. I basically had to do the same things. There were 2 moments that I was looking forward to that 9S's perspective could have done some cool things. When he's captured by Adam, and at the end there, when we'll just say the machines are like taking over him. And there was nothing done with those. With the Adam part, there seemed to be like a conversation going on between them, but there's no context to that conversation. 9S wants to blank 2B, kill presumably. Why? What value is that conversation? Why is that conversation being told to me? Um, what what does it matter if 9S wants to kill 2B or blank 2B? It just doesn't. It doesn't mean anything at that moment, and it doesn't mean anything after I've beaten the game. And then with the whole uh, machine corruption thing, I thought we would have actually got to maybe like see through a lot of machines' history or something like that, or maybe come to understand Adam and Eve a little bit more. Um, just there's just so much left on the table there, and when when the story is structured in this way, it killed my interest basically because I felt like I wasn't going to get 95% of the story in 9S's playthrough because 9S is with 2B for the majority of the playthrough. So it didn't seem like that was going to happen, but there was a possibility, they could have been dropping some bombs or something like that. I don't know. But regardless, I wasn't jiving with the pacing either. For thoughts on the story, during the 2B story, I definitely say there was interest in where the story could be going, and when her story concludes, there's really just nothing going on. Aliens create robots, robots kill aliens, and humans build androids to fight robots. Something along those lines, but delivered in outline form with no intrigue, curiosity, or suspense in its delivery. Yeah, I found the story to be very bare bones. I feel like they didn't they didn't build up a story. They didn't build up any characters. They didn't build up a villain. They just kind of dropped them in, and then we saw them every once in a while, and then once or twice we got a cutscene with them. There was no traditional storytelling techniques to bring the game forward, I guess, to create a story and then build off of the things that it's created. Um, it there's so much lacking in it, and it felt disappointing because you don't normally get games with stories delivered in this way. I mean, even the worst of stories out there still have, the climax and, the inevitable meeting with the final boss. And, you have those epic moments. And I just didn't feel like this game had any of that. I also don't get the appeal of having a 2B story and not doing an immediate continuation into 9S's story. Why put the game in a position where you need to tell the player that there's more if they play the game again and risk players not doing that? I was very conflicted whether this was something that was a problem with the story or something that was a problem with design, and it's probably both. But it really doesn't make any sense to me why once 2B's story is completed, you just immediately go into 9S's story. Maybe you save, maybe the game says, and now 9S's perspective or something like that. Because, and the reason I feel that way is because 2B's section of the game is so short, it's so bland, it's so bare bones. There's nothing interesting going on story wise, gameplay wise. It's just there. So I really struggle with the decision, other than hey, let's do something unique. But I'll give you points for uniqueness, but you ain't got points anywhere else. 12 hours into the game, having done a decent amount into the 9S route, I'm concerned the game can't make up the ground it lost with the 2B story. There are two scenes that could shed more light, Copied City and 9S being taken over by Eve, but I find it very difficult to believe that it will make all this effort worth it, air quotes. And yeah, I pretty much already touched on that, but I it wasn't worth the story information that I got from 9S's playthrough does not make 9S's playthrough worth it. And I would even arguably say 2B's playthrough wasn't even worth it because there was just nothing there. It was extremely disappointing. For gameplay mechanics and design, what gameplay elements stand out? There's some neat novelty when it comes to the camera perspective changing, but I just find it intrusive. Oftentimes when it changes, I can't move, but the enemies and their projectiles are still moving. So when I'm referencing these camera changes, it's a lot of like I'm in the 3D space and suddenly I'm moving in a 2D space, or if I'm with my, we'll call it an airship, I don't know, pilot suit or whatever. You know, I'm in airplane mode, and then all of a sudden I'm in like semi-mech mode, and I just wasn't very interested in any of that that dynamic. It got in the way for me. It it's a cool idea, and maybe it's just implemented too much for my taste. Who knows? The 2B tutorial where while playing as 9S was super cool, where it played back my tutorial choices when I played as 2B. I thought this was super cool. Without a doubt, the coolest thing in this game, and one of the coolest things I've ever experienced in a video game. And I wish they did that more in this game, because that would have been, at least in a noticeable way. It's possible that I missed some opportunities for that, but it was so unique, and I've never experienced that kind of situation before. So it was so small, but it was like revolutionary for me. It really got me thinking of, oh, how could they do this again in this game? But you know, it never came to pass. But regardless, very, very cool, and I applaud this game for that. I'm not a fan of the play the same game again with a different character, so the 9S section has essentially killed my interest about 3 hours in. I remember 2 to 3 moments where 9S not being around could be interesting, but I really doubt it would make going through the game a second time worth it. I've touched on this already a few times, but I still stick with those comments here. I like that the game has moments to switch up the gameplay with aerial shooting and the hacking, but I don't find those moments to be very engaging or fun. I struggle with the crazy bullet games where projectiles are all over the screen for the hacking, and the ship battle moments lack excitement for me. So I think it's cool that there's this hacking minigame where there's these projectiles all over the place and you gotta dodge them and kill all these little things. Like, very cool. It's very unique to this game. It works. The ship part, you know, like R-Type basically. I think those moments are cool. They're very unique to the game. They work, but I don't like them in combination with the rest of the game. It would make sense that it's there to break up the monotony of the sword combat, because there isn't much going on there. But what I found is that they just kind of sit there. They get in the way in a yeah, they just kind of like, they impede your progress a little bit. They're presenting you new modes of failure, I suppose, in my case. And that type of gameplay isn't something that I gravitate towards. So it became a very weak section of the game for me because I didn't particularly enjoy them. Um, there were, I think, 2 sections of the game where there were actually interesting things going on, maybe in the background or or what have you during the ship sections where it's like, okay, at least we got some stuff going on in the background to make this sequence uh, different. But for all the other sequences, it was just like we're flying around killing enemies, and that's why we're doing it. There's no visual stimulation to go along with it, like when we were doing the carrier defense, or when we were fighting that big, I don't know what it was, like snake robot, or I don't know, octopus robot. I don't know what it was. For combat, I enjoyed the combat, although I wish there were more options to switch it up. Swapping weapons helps, but without being able to upgrade them to be competitive, it wasn't a great option for me. So yeah, I think the combat was fine when I started playing it, and I even mentioned, I think towards the end of the 2B route, that I needed something to change it up a little bit, and I was kind of hoping the 9S route would, implement a totally different combat system or give you new tools to change up the combat system. But instead, they threw in a hacking, I guess, mini game that you more or less had to do multiple times to progress fights and things like that. And at that point, I don't want to grind in the game. I don't want to do the same side quests again. I don't want to fight all these enemies again. Like, it's just a waste of time. So I spent most of my time skipping as much as possible so that I can see all of the great moments that never happened in the story, uh, and and experience that for what it was. But sadly, none of that ever happened. For dungeons, there's really no dungeons in this game, but I would say if I were to reference the overworld, um, I I wasn't too interested in the overworld. Um, it was a lot of gray. Um, Honestly, and this is gonna be kind of weird to say, but I think the desert was probably the most interesting place. I don't really find the post-apocalyptic type of environments to be all that interesting because they they're ultimately just the same environment over and over again. And I I guess I would have liked more color spruced up in there, and that's obviously very difficult to do in a post-apocalyptic place. But uh, I guess that's just what I'll say about it. No cardinal sins for this game, I don't believe, which is a shocker. For sound and music, I don't think it's released yet, but by the time you watch this on YouTube, I will have a level up this playlist episode of Nier Automata, and you can see all the great music that I liked from this game because there's a lot of great music in this game, and it's pretty great. It's so great that they copyrighted on YouTube. For voice acting, I thought the voice acting was fine. I don't think I had any issues with it. I think a few characters sound very similar to one another, so there's that. But there could be like a story reason for that I just don't know about. For graphics, I thought the graphics were fine. I don't had any issues with that. Replay value. Does the game offer additional story content in a second playthrough to warrant playing the game again? No. um, as the game has been presented to me thus far, I don't think the game is worth playing a second time, also known as playing 2B's route and then 9S's route again. I also don't necessarily think the game is worth recommending either. Uh, it, it's just very blah. Would I play it again, whether immediately, near future, or distant future? So, after I finish this thoughts, I'm going to hit continue either Sunday or Monday, and I'm going to see if there is anything else in this game. I I have my suspicions. I don't know 100%, but I've seen some stuff on the internet. I've seen the cover of the game or like alternate art or something like that. I have reason to believe that there is something else in this game. And so I might experience that uh, and do that. But would I, if this was all that the game is giving me, would I go through the game again? Absolutely not. This game is not for me. If the developer is watching, I think what I just said is probably the crux of my feelings on this game. I don't think this game needs a traditional storytelling, platform or scaffolding or whatever you want to call it, in order to deliver its story. I think it has some interesting ideas. I think it's implemented some ideas in incredibly cool ways. I think there's a lot of great design and potential to the game, but from what I have experienced personally, I just don't. I don't jive with it. As to repeat myself for I believe a third time on that. Um, I I didn't feel like it offered anything that made it stand out to me. It didn't uh, progress itself. It didn't build upon itself. It just kind of. I don't want to say that it just kind of like lazily threw a story in there to show off, an interesting combat system, but that's the experience that I felt like I got. The story just doesn't feel like it's complete to me. It just there's so much missing to it, and for a lot of the gameplay and combat elements of the game, they just didn't really stick with me either. I didn't find myself enjoying them all too much. With that said, would I play a sequel? Uh, Probably not. I For me, I think this is a great lesson in popular opinion, in that I don't necessarily hold it to high regard, but there are some games out there that get lots of attention from fans and gamers alike. And when you see a game elevated like that, then a lot of times you think to yourself, wow, this game could actually be pretty good, if that many people like it. Especially in a scenario where you don't see very much criticism about the game. So you kind of think to yourself, oh, well, okay, this game must be doing a lot of things right to have so many people adore it and have so few people, or at least see so few people. My sphere of influence is very tiny, but so few people see so little negativity around it or criticisms about it. So I it is something that I take into account, where I look at the game that I experienced, and then I look at the experience that other people are are saying about it, and I don't see how they got to where they did. But at the same time, everybody's different. Everybody likes whatever they want. So I ain't out there trying to tell people they can't like the game or that they should like the game or what have you. You like whatever you want. That being said, just to reiterate my overall thoughts again, I'm not really a fan. But if there is more to play, I will potentially play more for the sole purpose of going down the rabbit hole of, can this game actually dig itself out of the hole that it put itself in? Because I'm very much a journey, not destination sort of person. And so from where I'm sitting, it's likely impossible for this game to be amazing in my eyes because the journey so far has been very mediocre. And ultimately just not worth the time investment. But there's always that 0.001% chance. So we'll see if that happens. But that's gonna wrap it up for me for today and these thoughts. So thanks for watching. Appreciate it. See you the next time I see you. Peace.